So anyway, I thought I needed to make another video. My phone seems to be lagging tremendously, and I know that it's not my phone, it's the people that are controlling the phone, that every time I restart the fucking phone, it just keeps lagging and glitching horrifically. And I spend $300 on a damn fucking phone. I was thinking I wanted to talk about this story of going to SeaWorld. And we had just bought a brand new car. I talked about this in my other video, the Dodge Intrepid, which was when I was it was a 1997 Dodge Intrepid. It was the year that the car is supposed to be in. Like, it was a brand new car that year we bought, and it was 97, if I recall. But it was a brand new car. And one of the reasons I talk about this is because we went to SeaWorld later that summer, and there's a picture of it. Now, my mom's sister, Lupe, went with us. Now, it was very odd that Lupe went with us on vacation. I don't know why she went with us. I don't know what the connection, what this is. But she had to have known, with Kathy, this blonde bitch that was fucking threatening me in my house and all this other shit, is that she was involved in this whole smuggling, fame, benefits, and everything that's going on. Look, when I talk about this story, I'm 41 years old. That red carpet is long gone from my youth. It is a new version, a new restart, whatever bullshit is up ahead. If there is, even if there is, that's it. That was a tragedy. My fucking raping, the cancer, and all this other shit, that was just a tragedy. That's all it was. I was worthless. Okay, it's not the same. So, but when I talk about this, I say this because Frankie was involved. I don't know where corruption was involved, and it puts people that are listening to these videos awareness of where I have to say about it, where I was, and what I didn't know about up until now. And no one ever told me. But it was very odd, and this is the only vacation that Lupe went with us. And Lupe was with us, and I talk about that when we went to SeaWorld, we first got into the entrance to the gates. We turned to, I think it was our right, and there was like a couple, you know how they had like snow cones, like some souvenirs kind of stuff. They had like all around on the sides, and then because it's a very big theme park, and someone asked us, let us take a picture of your family, and we all got together, and my dad is in that picture. If you look at how my dad is dressed, he is dressed like a guy that's coming out of a nursing home. He looks like he's much more willing to participate. But he looks like he's out of his ability, of his own awareness. And he was, if I'm like 90% sure on this, that I recall, he was wearing diapers. We went to a theme park and my dad was wearing diapers. And I remember thinking to myself, being young, and I was 13 years old, I was thinking, dear God, please don't let my dad just shit himself. Like, I hope he doesn't shit. Because he was beginning to be kind of stubborn. Like, oh, I can do it. I can do, I got it, And I knew he couldn't. Because, like, he was still my dad, but it was such a confusing part of me because I knew he couldn't, but I can't retaliate against my dad saying, you can't be a dad. You can't be my dad. You're sick. And I couldn't do that. So I have to go along as much as I can just to play things smooth. Just keep things rolling along. Just go along with it and look like we're put together. Look like we're fucking put together as a whole family. And don't cause frustration too much to my family. And I remember how my mother was behaving. We get into the theme park. We take a picture. Lupa's in the picture. We still have that picture. And my dad was wearing diapers to a theme park with the family. It was my dad's house, my mom's, and I remember my mother, like, I could tell that she felt very trapped. And I remember thinking, like, I think they gave each other a kiss on the cheek, and it was kind of like, or on the lips, and it was like, thank you for buying me this car, or what else you were going to give me. You know how like an old man gives like to a woman he really didn't have sex with, and they just sort of like a Playboy Mansion bunny or something. It was kind of like that. And I didn't say anything, and I could just tell by my mom's body language. Yeah, I just give him a kiss in front of everybody, and it was like a small peck, and that's all it was. But I could tell by my mom's body language she was just not really wanting to participate. But she felt like, this is the only family we have, we got to put together, and I'm just taking care of this old man. And when we walked in there, we took the picture. I remember looking from a very far distance, and I remember seeing like a black couple, like a black family, and they were at the very end. And I remember that everyone in that park was all scattered away from us. Like everything around us was all scattered away. And it was very weird, like it was being prepared or something. And I thought it was very weird because I was like, gosh, all the people were all like, no one was, it just looked like everyone just got out of our way. Like they were preparing for us. And I just remember looking far down where there was a waterfall, and I remember seeing this sort of woman that looked like Tanya, kind of ish, and I saw like a husband and a couple of kids, I think I remember, and it was near the waterfall, and I remember they directly looked, kind of like looking, and then looked directly over at us, and we were right by the waterfall, and I remember thinking to myself, because I remember the way that I held sort of my dignity of my father wasn't just because he was a human being and he was an old man, is that the fact that he was supposed to be a treasure mine of a World War II veteran and a graduate nurse with a nursing degree in the period of time of racism was at the peakest of all time. Born in 1925, I knew my history whenever I was going to school. I knew my history of slavery. I knew my history of the 40s because I remember the books that we were reading and everything. And I remember seeing the pictures, and there was no Mexican professionals. I mean, the racist videos that they used to show us in elementary school was very rampant. And I used to pay attention to a lot of this because my dad had me watch war movies when I was a kid. You know, was it The Guns That Never Own? Or it sounds like that, but I don't think it's The Guns That Never Own, but it's something that sounds like that. But there was the Battle of the Bulge. There was a couple of other ones, but it was historical kind of old movies. Like we had Emiliano Zapata, we had Pancho Villa. These movies were like in black and white. These movies were like from the 70s and 60s. Like some of them, like really old. So it had a historical kind of like old, remember the past kind of movies. So, and I say this because when we walk in there, I remember just thinking that I think that these people were over there by the water fountain were the military. You know, because by this time, there's plenty of black people that have a high level authority in the military. There's plenty of them. This is 1997, 1998. And so I didn't really think of anything, and I remember it was the only person that looked directly over at us. And I remember that lady, and she was kind of like Tanya built, black lady, but the body language seemed like very authoric, like, we got this, yeah, this is how we live, or like, because it's a very different thing than when a white family does it. A white family does it in the sense it's like, oh, they can feel compassion, but it's bullshit. They don't understand what prejudice and being scolded out of a circle is. They don't understand that. And when you grow up with someone the way that I did, where you can't drink from the same fountain as a colored person. You have to go to the dirty bathroom. You can't go into restaurants and eat because you're colored. You have to ride on the back of the bus. There's a lot of things you can't do in life because you're colored. Black people understand that more than anyone else other than Mexican people. And my dad's dark complected, so racism just isn't about your ethnicity. It depends on how dark your skin is. So it's true. A very light-skinned black person gets treated more different than a very dark black person. And same thing with Mexican people. A Mexican person with green eyes and white skin and tries to tell everybody they're Mexican and all this other shit. You don't get treated Mexican. You're not really Mexican. But you grew up with that heritage shit, but it's not the same. You get treated better, and there's a difference. Because you really are, really am from that bloodline. So, but I remember we took this picture, and I remember my dad being in diapers, and I was just hoping nobody would find out about my dad being in diapers and hear it because there's a lot of noise. And I was like, well, I try to start thinking of positive. I'm like, well, there's a lot of noise. I won't hear the crunches of the diapers as it's moving around. And I was hoping that my dad wasn't going to shit himself and it just starts wringing down his leg. I mean, when you're 13 years old and you have something like that happen and like your dad and you're this Mexican, it is the annihilation of any dignity you're gonna feel. It's a disgrace of pathetic of how other people look at you. Because you see white families are all put together, even other other racial families, other ethnicities, but not as poorly as my father looked like with my mother. But my mother just bought this car, and I thought it was because my dad bought my mother this car. And I knew it was because he just wasn't in a good state of mind. And I remember Lupe went with us, and we went to SeaWorld, and we went through the park, and I don't really remember any of it. I do remember being with Frankie as we went to... I do remember going into the glass windows and seeing the orca swim, and then we were outside at the theme park where they had those Shamu shows. I remember seeing that, and then me and Frankie, I think Julie could have been with us, or I don't think maybe he'd been with my mom, but me and Frankie were sort of going in circles around the dolphins. They had an outdoor pool where it was elevated, a pool, so you'd be standing up and the concrete was like that, and you could possibly reach over and pet some of the dolphins, and there was dolphins inside the water. It was 10 of them. It was a big pool, and it was an uprise made pool, and I remember going in circles, and it was a pretty deep pool, and obviously people are not being it, but there's dolphins, and we bought some fish. It was a couple of dollars for some fish. They gave you 3 fish in one of those hot dog type of carton things, and we try to throw fish and they kind of come over to us, and I wasn't able to. I was trying to reach for a dolphin. I almost got to pet one, but I didn't. And then Frankie got really lucky, and he got to pet one of the dolphins. And I remember him telling me, he goes, "Man, it feels really rubbery, kind of weird." I was like, "Well, it feels really rubbery and weird." The dolphin. So I remember that. And I remember me and Frankie were sort of trying to hurry up to kind of get to an open spot because everyone was crowded around the pool, and trying to find an open spot and maybe get a dolphin to show up near us. And but I didn't get to pet one. I think I had told him for a minute. I was like, "Yeah, I got to pet it," and just because I felt so left out, and I felt so left out, but I didn't get to pet it. It came really close. It came really, really close to me, but it didn't pet me. I didn't get to pet it, but anyway, I that's about the only thing that I remember. That's the only thing I remember being at SeaWorld and going outside, sitting on the bleachers, and they did the whole show, and then going underwater, and and they did the mermaid. They did they did a mermaid show underneath the water, and I don't know if dolphins were in the picture. I don't think Shamu was, or the orcas, but they did a whole show with mermaids, and they did an underground show, and it looked really cool. And they were like drinking soda underneath the water. They had sort of the pretty good show, and I thought it was pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, I thought I'd talk about that, and that's the only thing I remember about SeaWorld. I don't remember really much about the situation. I just remember that I was very nervous about my dad, and every time I showed up around my mother, the few times I would approach her, she was happy for us, but she herself, when I looked at her, she was happy that, you know, she got a car and that things were getting better, but there was this self of her that when I looked at how I know my mother is, like she was being shamed in front of people, because when we were walking with all these other people, like, people stare at you. And when you see a 35-year-old woman with a 7-year-old man in diapers, and he looks like he's all, and he's just like lost or some shit, which he wasn't, and he was just happy to be there. And Lupe, I guess, was like a supervisor to him at that time, and I didn't know anything about this, but I thought it was important for me to take a note of this and make a video. But I thought I would say something. Frankie did get a pet a dolphin. He did get to pet a dolphin. 100%. I remember because he got really close and it showed up and it let it pet him. So that's all I remember. And I remember that, like I said, that as far as any other exhibits, I don't remember anything really much about that. But I thought it was important for me to talk about because there's no telling. You know, I don't know who is responsible for who. It's not. I'm not pissed off at all. I'm not aware of any of this. This is fucking 30 years ago. So it's like 30 years ago. I'm 41 years old, so 30 years ago I was about 12 years old. Yeah, I was 11 years old. It's close to 30 years ago that this happened, and. Yeah, that's all I remember, and I remember my mother had this sort of like this, she has to be happy, but she's being shamed in front of people, like, that's the leftover shit that you're gonna get. And she's looking at all these young couples. Most of the people there are young couples in their 30s or 40s and with their family, or in their 50s. But my mother looked so healthy and vivid, and we're young, and we got this old man. And so my mom really wasn't like hugging my father like there were a couple or holding hands. It was very much like, I think my mother probably at times made it look like, okay, to everyone else, I'm taking care of this old man, so I don't look so shameful. To my mother, it was like, we're getting to live, and we have a place, and we have, because you don't understand that my mother, there's nothing that we can go to. And she's already given up twins. By this time, the twins haven't even been discovered. I'm pretty sure the twins possibly haven't even been discovered yet. And so I thought it was important for me to talk about this. I don't know really what else to say about this. There's not going to be any justice for, they did it on purpose, in my opinion. I think that people did want to help, but you have too many blood-sucking parasites around, and you have a lot of situations that are going on, and I was doubted of being able to represent my mother and father correctly in any vocal words because of Frankie being raped and Michael Jackson, and that was why. Michael Jackson and their family was such a powerhouse atomic bomb that it's better to smother and kill me off and the family and throw chunk shit money for the exchange of something that, that's political power and something else that's much more bigger. You know, do you want to save and run a country, or do you want to let a family get gutted out like pigs so Ken Cooper and White Power and the police department and Keno and Madison can look really great? Oh, and then Sarah talk your shit out. Well, it's too late. You don't want to, you know, and it sucks, you know, because they do that on purpose because they want to throw you to God and Jesus and all this other shit, and that was why they did it. That was why they only did this shit. You punished the wrong people, and I was the absolute key role. I was a red flag person to tell you everything, and they did it on purpose. They wanted to just doubt me the entire time because they knew I knew too much, and I could have too much power to accessible to power to what was going on, and they want to say, "Oh, it's just for the family," and the family didn't know bullshit. But it goes the way that they want, and it did. So I think it's important because I remember Frankie was wearing a hat, I think, and my dad was. My dad was wearing a hat, and I think he could have been wearing sunglasses, which he rarely ever did. My dad did not wear sunglasses. My dad was not a sunglasses person. He had like a pair that he wore, or he had, but he never did. It's the only time I think he ever wore sunglasses that I could ever recall in public anywhere. And, so I thought it was important for me to talk about this because, I'm 12 years old. Whoever purchased this car for the family, I don't even have the slightest idea. But I remember just thinking to myself when I saw the people at the water fountain, for some reason, I don't know if it was just that moment that I was thinking to myself, like, I have to stand up for my father. This is crazy. He went to World War. He was in World War II. He's a nurse, and you motherfuckers don't give a shit. None of you motherfuckers give a shit. And I remember just thinking of that very heavily, because I had to have something that was like, it was like, yeah, well, my dad is in World War II and a nurse, you motherfuckers. But what the fuck you do? Maybe in diapers, but what the fuck you do? To be in 1944 and graduate the college degree and to go through that type of racism, you don't know shit about how unfair things are. And, the amount of tolerance you have to have for something like that in a race, that number of kids is astonishing. That's a high level tolerance. And, it was difficult. I didn't talk to my dad too much. We kind of just scattered, kind of went walking all throughout the park. We weren't exactly all that put together. But I remember my dad sitting down and then, I think we were near the dolphin area and to get a few dollars from my mother. And my dad was like, "Oh, I gotta show them who we are," and give my mother a kiss on the cheek, on the lips, to reaffirm. And who knows who else was watching us. And my mom felt very obligated and forced to do that, and she did it in public. So I could just tell how my mom was. My mom was this is what I have to do. I don't have any choice. I have to do this. This is the only life we're going to have. This is why my mother slept with my father, and he was gay, or tried to, so I think it's important to talk about because, that picture, I remember he's in diapers, and I was thinking he doesn't shit himself, and I just made myself look like, as long as I look like I'm put together, they'll focus this on me, and they don't have to worry about maybe my dad is wearing diapers in this picture. And I remember always looking at my dad's waistline, because sometimes he would put diapers and the plastic would be fucking cleaning out like this. Like the plastic lining would be coming out, because when my father would put his clothes, he would make sure the bottom parts of his shoe, pants was covering over his shoes, clean cut. It looked like just somebody just put on clothes and just went about their business, wrinkled or not, the stains didn't matter. It's just, I got clothes on, that's what I got to do. So when we were there, I remember he was trying to be sort of more alert than he was. By this time, he made somewhat of a recovery, but I thought it was important to talk about this because, I thought it was important for me to talk about this, the shame and stuff of feeling like that, and I don't know if Lupe knew. I'm pretty sure she did. I don't know. I know she did. If they bought my mother a car, then there was other people that fucking knew about that shit. Other people that did. So I think it's important for me to talk about because I went to a theme park with a family and my dad was in fucking diapers. And I remember just hoping that he wasn't going to shit himself. Like where we're going to be there and he's going to be walking with his slacks and then just dire shit just starts coming out and he just starts walking and he just doesn't really care. He's just like, I got diapers on. It doesn't really have a smirk, but just like, and I remember, I know that my mother and Lupa were like thinking of that because when he would sit down and he's sort of sitting down because he's getting tired, and that was it. And but the other one time that we went to a theme park was when Frankie got back from the Navy. 1 year, I think it was one of the years, and we went to Six Flags. Me, Frankie, and Julian went to Six Flags. And Frankie was coming to visit us, and he visited us once, and then we went to Six Flags all together as brothers, us three brothers. By this time, at that time, I think I was 18. Yeah, because I was working out a lot, and we went rock climbing, and I chose the hardest rock climb, and I peaked it like it was nothing. I'm telling you, I peaked it all the way like just pure body strength, because I was so light. I was 130. I was 135, and I remember telling, because this black woman was strapping me up, and I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you look pretty built. I goes, yeah, I'm 135. I bench press about 250. See how good my body is. I was literally just like pure body, like almost all upper body strength, and I climbed it up like nothing, and I got there was 3 different or 4 different sections or something like that, and I chose the hardest one. And I got, all right, me and Frankie and Jim were all climbing up to get to the top, and there's a cowbell at the bottom you have to hit and ring. And I was like, oh, that's not too bad. Anyway, I thought it was important for me to talk about because when was it? Oh, Jeremy went with us. I think, was it Jeremy that went with us one of those times? Yeah, I think Jeremy went with us. Did he? Yeah, I want to say I think Jeremy went with us one of those times. It was me. Jeremy. Jeremy went with us to Six Flags on this particular time. I want to say he did. It was me, Frankie, and Julian. I'm going to say Jeremy went with us, I think. Yeah, or was that a different time? I remember going, yeah, Jeremy went with us. Yeah, Jeremy went with us. Me, Jeremy King, and we went to Six Flags, and so he got to kind of talk to Frankie and Julian. It's the first time he talked to my brothers, like we went to a theme park. And he was really excited. So he went with us. Got to talk to Frankie, get familiar, and whatnot. So, anyway, I thought I'd talk about it. I thought I'd talk about it because, that was just that, but as far as the SeaWorld experience, I remember just hoping my dad, and sometimes I'd just kind of walk by him to see if I could smell shit, so I get a red alert, like to watch him. You don't understand that, like, I'm not ignoring him, but I always have to do behavior like this. Like, I just maybe walk by him to see if I could smell some shit. And whether he went to the bathroom in his pants. And because he wasn't like red alert. And these are some of the most embarrassing situations that I would be around him. Like, I didn't know if he was just going to shit himself in public and it smears on the chairs, and then like people are watching. Because, like, not only am I young, and the other kids my age are watching, but they're not, they don't understand. Like, they just, how, like, bullies pick on kids that aren't cool because they don't wear expensive clothes? That's exactly what it was and how it is. So I thought it was important for me to talk about this because, I thought it was important. So I remember that. I remember walking through there and just hoping he just wasn't going to shit himself. Just hope we got to look like a unit. We don't have to look like the most put together. We got to look like like there's a unit. This is not attacking the old man for his money. And I was thankful he didn't shit himself. Don't shit yourself. Because it's like, hold your bowel system together. And I remember Lupe, I think we're near the Dolphins, and saying, Oye, Ray, ¿necesitas ir al baño? ¿Estás bien? No, I'm fine. And he just would be like this. And I remember Lupe, she's wearing a white tank top, or whatever, not tank top, but like a all white. You can see all the shoulders, and it's a white, and I think shorts and sunglasses in the picture. She's wearing a white. It covers the about this part of the chest all the way down. There's no straps or nothing, but it's real tight against the breast and stomach. So I thought I would talk about that, and it was embarrassing. I remember just hoping he just wasn't gonna and it's weird because people don't recognize this. I don't think I ever talked about this, that I would sort of do my patrols. I have to go around with Dad and just I'll ask him a question and. So I would leave, but I would never tell my father, "Hey, did you shit yourself? You feel like going to the bathroom all the time?" I would never antagonize. It wasn't like that. I just would not want to say, because he was a little bit sort of snatchy, a little bit in his behavior, and I think it had something he was sort of, because he was getting agitated or tired, and I think that may have been why, because he wanted to go and continue life and continue doing, but he was more than his physical ability was allowing to. What in his mind was, he felt like he still could keep going, and he really couldn't. But we went there, and I remember how my mother was, and she felt like, at least that's what I remember, there was a shame. She was proud and happy, but she was trying to let my dad know, we're here together, okay, and we're not a couple really anymore, and I remember my mother, the vibe was distant. The vibe was distant between the two. And I thought it was important, and I just remember looking over at the water fountain. There was a black couple, and thinking to myself when I saw them that they're military. I don't know why. I don't. Like I said, I don't know if it was just because, if anybody tries to shame us, I remember internalizing this. You got to be my dad's a World War II veteran. Keep that. That's my pride. My dad just isn't some old shit man that was in some corner, didn't do nothing his whole life. People don't realize who this person is. And that's what I remember very vividly thinking of. They don't know who this guy is. This guy was in 1944, but I didn't tell people that. And I remember just thinking that I thought the military was involved, and I how there's off duty, and they're just, there was somebody else that felt that I knew was involved. Besides everyone being spread out and scattered away from us, and it was just all this space, and even though there was a lot of people. I remember seeing a couple over by the water fountain, a black couple, and looked like some kids, maybe 3-4 kids, a husband and a wife, and they were just kind of jumping around, and I remember the woman just kind of looking, and they looked over directly over at us, and there was all these people, and there was plenty of space to look anyway, and they looked directly over at us, and then kind of did this. Kind of looked directly over at us, and then goes like this, and did that. And so this body language, it was far. I would say, from the entrance of that area to where it's probably a good 50 yards. I would say. I mean, it was pretty far distance, but it was clear of everything I could see. It was bright in the day, sunshine. And I remember this lady just kind of looking, and you know, she was a heavy, kind of looked like Tanya a little bit. She just kind of looks and she goes, like, when she looked and goes like this, and I think she had like something in her drink, looked like maybe some rings, I don't know, like, you know how they buy glow in the dark rings or something like that, and she just looks and she just, and so this language to me, I remember I remember just thinking to myself, this is military. I remember, I think that couple was military. I don't know if they were. The guy could have looked military. Looked like he was some pretty good shape, tall, 6'4", 6'3". The lady was probably about 5'8", 5'9". Anyway, so I thought I would say, I don't know what the situation is. I still don't know to this day. I think it's worth talking about, but I'll never know about what that situation is. It's just so many years down the road. But you know, people don't even know that you would walk by him to see if I could smell shit because I didn't want him to shit himself. And it's things like that people don't. I forget to even talk about. That when you're around your father, and it's like, this is my dad, and so I have to get around him like to see if he recognizes, because I know when he shits himself, he's not gonna like really recognize that it's a crucial thing to be worried about, and he just sort of like alert, but he's sort of like incoherent about it, or like wants to be unaware about it, or may not even feel it. Because I remember like there'd be like there'd be an ant. I remember like watching an ant or something, or like mosquitoes biting my dad in his hand, and he would just be sitting there and he wouldn't feel it. He wouldn't sense it. And I thought it was because my dad used to tell me, because they don't like my blood. He goes, I don't know, they don't bite me too much. And for some reason, the mosquitoes didn't really get around my dad. For some reason, he goes, the mosquitoes don't bite me. They don't really like me. They don't really like my blood. But I remember my dad sort of, and I knew that his sensories of his touch weren't as heightened because of his age, and just whatever consists of someone of being of that nature. But he would feel it, so I knew, this was when I was 11 years old, so I knew, if he shitted, he probably wouldn't feel or sense anything. So there's a lot of things like that nobody knew. But I remember patrolling around him, thinking to myself, and I think I remember looking over at him, and sort of looking at my mother, and sort of patrolling my father, but like hoping he wasn't going to shit himself either. And so I thought it was important for me to talk about. There's no story to it. It's all the past. It doesn't matter. It's 30 years ago. You can put whatever you want to it. It's best benefiting when you're young and you have a future. But I got so little discredited from that. There's a lot of anger that went into that shit. Whenever I got pissed off that it wasn't, people like immediately attached to all the money. When you have to be around somebody like that and you're just like, that's your dad, and like people are training me that saying he wasn't my father or scolding me, and then sort of, somebody coming inside the PBK and being like, oh, good job, Hector, like I was his son. He wasn't like this when I was young. He was going to my soccer games all the time. Like, he didn't miss one soccer game. He may have missed just a couple of them. I mean, in fact, when he was sitting on the bench or running on the side or walking really fast down the sidelines to get his exercise, or going swimming to get his swimming exercise, because after he got a heart attack in front of me, and I was like 5 or 6 years old, or like 4 years old. I was like 4 years old. Was it before Michael Jackson? I think it was before Michael Jackson. Shit, I remember that. I was in Michelle's house next door. And I remember this brunette, real light-skinned girl, brunette, real pretty, looked like Minnie Mouse, real pretty face. Like symmetrical, pretty, and the symmetry in her face is so pretty. But I remember having a crush on her. Anyway, I was like 4 years old, and that was like before Michael died. And I saw my dad have a heart attack, and I saw him do this, like he was sitting on the bed. He had a heart attack, and then they wheeled him out in a stretcher, and I was like 4 years old. My mom was all scared, and my mom put me with the neighbor's house. And I talked about this at Ivan's house, which wasn't Ivan before they lived there. It was another couple that lived there. And anyway, I remember my mother like crying and like so scared, and I was just desperate for my parents to show up. My mom shows up and finally picks me up. It was the most boring time I could ever imagine. I was cold sweating. I was so going insane. I felt like I was going just bored. And but anyway, I was about 4 years old, and so yeah, that Frankie gets raped within about a year. I mean, I don't know who these people over here probably saw the ambulance and probably talked about it. Everyone in the neighborhood fucking probably saw that shit. They still raped Frankie. So, anyway, you know, there's a lot of frustration because people didn't understand. People didn't give a fuck. They thought that they've already put in their mind together, understand, you know, that, you know, there's a lot of caretaking and a lot of participating involved that they don't fucking know about. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of things that, as a kid, you don't want to go through. You don't want to go through being around an old man shitting himself, losing your famous dignity. Like they used to sit around on these bicycles rolling in our front yard, looking at my dad like he was in a fucking amusement park. You know, like some old geezer piece of shit. You know, making fun of my family and whatnot. And it was Drew Greenway, Annie Hoppin is not alive anymore, and Micah Martinkus, and I think some other kid. I think Chris Kent did it as well. You gotta understand, these are all white boys, you know, and if I remember feeling that racism, like I said, it's too late now, but anyway, you know, God rest his soul, it was a tragic accident. I ended up getting really good friends with him the last couple of years of his life, and that's who I saw with Katy Perry, and, but yeah, I thought I'd talk about that. You know, one of the reasons why I thought Carrie, I know this sounds crazy. You don't have to believe me if you don't want to. The reason I know that, or very strongly believe that was Katy Perry, is because it was probably easier not me to talk about because, you know, when you're young, you can be overfetched with women that are very pretty that you like, and you can be overwhelmed to want to say anything because you want to add some sort of fame to there and sort of ride the red carpet, and that belongs to them. It's not mine. And so then you become this tug of war. But anyway, I saw her, and when they said Katy, and Katy Perry, I want to say, she said Katy for sure, and I want to say she said Perry, and I remember just thinking to myself, what a beautiful name. And I know this, just beautiful name, I remember thinking to myself, I know this sounds crazy, you're not believe me, I remember thinking, Katy Palomo. Last name, was she like the last name Palomo? Like Katie, was she like that as a woman? Like she's a white woman, obviously, with her eyes, but she had black hair. And I remember just thinking, like, Katy Palomo, if we were to be married. Because by this time, there had already been some sort of channeling, and I remember, you know, I was only in that class for like 2 weeks, I think, at most. And when I saw her over there, I remember walking by a couple of times in class, and I saw Annie Hoppin hugging her before you would leave, like she needed some comfort. And I remember Andy telling me, he goes, yeah, you know that pretty girl, you know that kid, she's real pretty. He goes, that girl can sing, man. Because he found out, like, he had just found out I just started DJing, or I was a DJ. He had just found out I was into turntables at that time. And I'm 16 years old, I think, or 15 to 16 years old. And he told me, oh man, you know that girl? That girl knows how to sing, man. He goes, that girl can sing. He goes, I don't know, she's crazy. I think she transferred over to R.L. Turner or transferred to some other school or something like that. But I remember I was in the classroom, and he told me, and I want to say, I don't know if it was like, because I was walking by and she walked up ahead of me and they already hugged and they walked, and then I was walking and I was sort of one of the last kids coming into class, and Andy walked by me and just glanced, oh, hey, what's up, man? Oh, what's going on? Hey, oh, man. Oh, hey, what's up? And at this time, you know, it's crazy how you come across white people like this who everyone adores because of their looks. And I was this mustache, skinny, scrawny kid who was just in some Mexican spick in a corner, and I wasn't with the 2,000, you know, kids that were all this sort of luxury, fancy clothes and cars, and I looked like some kind of kid from the ghettos. And they would be very friends with someone like that, but they had no idea I'd spent 10 years with this kid. And the fights that we had, or around Micah and Andy or Chris, and riding bikes, and the extreme rivalry we had at all through entire middle school. He would not let go of me. I mean, he was very, very like, because it was weird because he was an English blonde kid like that, and he'd always, but he was, anyway, I talked about this racist shit that he used to do as well, but we got older at the last year, or in 7th grade, when we got 7th grade, you know, there was friends and we started smoking weed and shit, and, you know, but anyway, a couple times, but I thought it was important for me to talk about, because that's why I know that I believe it was Katie Gray, because I was thinking to myself, Katie Palomo, I wonder if we were, I think she, like, I was thinking to myself, oh, Katie Palomo, like her last name, you look great, we sound Katie, Miss Palomo. Does Miss Palomo fit with her? Like, Miss Palomo, was she, like, her answering the door, very rich, you know, nice home, we're together, and, you know, someone would say, hello, Miss Palomo, like, does she look like Miss Palomo? Like, I remember thinking of this, you don't have to believe me, but I remember doing that in my mind, because I was, you know, sort of kind of going into my Goo Goo Gaga land, right? Lulu land, right? And, you know, I could tell when, you know, at least at this time, because when you're very young like that, there was something that happened to me that when my dad committed suicide. And one of the things that being around my dad, and my dad, you know, drinking beer and, you know, taking care of me, and I'm taking care of him and all this other shit for so many years, when he committed suicide, and then I look into my dad's eyes, and I see somebody that doesn't recognize barely me anymore, or doesn't know who he is, there's something that's very stern that just happened to me. And because somebody killed themselves in front of me. And it was very brutal. And so when I looked at people, it affected me for a very long time. It affected me throughout my entire years of school. You know how like people try to give you the death look and, you know, a sinister look, and, you know, they get it from the movies. Well, I didn't get it from the movies. I was going and watching a real death situation in real life. And so it tends to keep your eyes very stern and solid of reality. And so I was around that. So when I looked at Katie, it was very solid, and know that, I mean, it was, and I remember her, like, because women love very strong eye contact, especially when you're in high school, in your 20s. It's always very powerful, but when a girl's developing and getting into relationships in the very early stages of sex, you know, when there's a very solid, because most males are not like that with women. They sort of develop it after high school. But I remember her just like curious about me, like, why is this, and knew that I wasn't. I remember her like then doing that at work, and then like kind of encouraged me, like, do your schoolwork, like do your, kind of doing that, like, and was looking at me like, I wonder why he's not doing his work, because I would just sit there and I'd read some of the documents and whatnot, and then I sort of didn't even want to do the work. and I would just kind of zone off, and I, kind of just start, I don't know, fiddling around with some other my attention somewhere else. And she would just look at me, and I remember she was just looking at me like I was just sitting there, and I was. And I remember looking at her, but I remember very distinctively thinking to myself, that situation is Katy Perry, and she said Katy Perry. She said Katy, and she looks just like her. Could be someone else. I'm not saying it. That's how I know it. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't her, but that's how I believe. No one has ever told me that she went to Smith. There was one time that when Andy told me, "Oh, you know that girl Katy," he just said Katy. He didn't say Katy Perry, and she seemed to be pretty colorful at her early stage of life as well. I think you could just see, seemed very colorful, and there is no doubt in my mind the reason that drew me to her was she looked like anything she raised was absolute success. She looked that I knew that she was going to be a successful a mother, an artist, a singer, a painter. She's going to go to college. Anything that this person was going to do was going to be at an extreme success, and an extreme success for children. And I remember thinking of that because I searched that in women when I was younger. When they showed such a prominent ability that the offspring would be taught mentally very intelligently to their children, to our children. And I remember getting that impression from her. And I'm not trying to go down, this person's life. I'm not trying to make a fairy tale out of this, but that's how the story goes, okay? 2 weeks. So I thought it was important for me to make this because I talked about some of the story before, but it's another topic on a I should have made another video, but I'll talk about some other things. But I don't know who gets to watch these videos and chop it up in segments, and who gets to watch them. I don't know who does the editing. It must be pretty boring to watch these videos. And I don't know. Some people like doing that kind of stuff, but it still gives the information to them to then leak it out to somebody else. So that's the way the story goes. But it was. I still don't know. I don't know 100%. But to my understanding, I think it was. She's already kind of that's how it was. But old too soon, smart too late. And but as far as it goes with the whole SeaWorld situation, there was so much frustration that laid into that they thought I was just some kid that just just some old man in a fucking house, and I'm just waiting for him to die, or just barely into there, and because that's how I was treated at so many of the companies that I was at all the companies I was at. They didn't realize the intent. They didn't realize the work intensity of other stuff that was going on, and so much of them saw that as, oh, he's just an old man taking care of a random kid. No, I didn't. It was very genuine. He was my father. It was very genuine. There wasn't a recollection in my mind why he wasn't my biological father. There was none. So when people behave and know that he's not my biological father and he's gay, they don't know the stories, but they start taking those actions and impressions against me because they want to follow and protect their own homosexual LGBT community. Oh, just you know what a gay man really wanted to do in his life. He just wanted some kids to take care of. I mean, it was not that. It was a family. So when besides my part of everything that happened, Frankie getting raped, by 10 homosexual men. We were in the bar, and I remember saying, I talked about when I went to VFW, and I said something. I think I said something when I was in the car with Frankie, or I was scared, and I didn't want to, kind of nervous, because I knew my dad saw this, and I may have said something like, Frankie, what were you doing back there? Like, what were you doing? And I remember my dad, like, because these guys are huge. By this time, it's like a bar fight. And there was a guy already questioning my dad. So, and my dad already got into a fight, and he was, goddamn, and he looked just like Ken Cooper. He really did. So, anyway, I really can't, those days are over. My dad was up and fighting, and the only thing he knew about was obviously my uncle that did this to us. He suspected or thought it was something when his own brother did this to us when we were in Houston. And because we got up and left like that, we just ran. Like he didn't say goodbye. He didn't want to wave. He said, "Get in the car now." We're like in a rush in a family to just get the hell out of there. And because I asked my dad, like, "Why come you so in a hurry, Dad? Get in the car now!" Like, just get like. And he looked at me like crazy, like, and I just run inside and get, "Come over," and he was like, "Fucker," And I remember leaving. So I thought it was important for me to talk about it because, that was at the last minute of the situation. And, I don't know really what else to say. I don't know what else to say about this particular situation. God knows what happened to Frankie. Now he can't talk. So time's gone. They had a good time. It sucks being Mexican because when you have these pigs, Kenneth at the radio station, and all the pigs that was transgenders, and you know what the fuck happens to what they did to people in prison? You know what they do to fucking got real men to go to fucking prison at that time in the fucking 90s and 80s? There's nothing but faggots in there, and still to this fucking day. What they fucking do to us, and you have no women, you have faggots and other gays in there that fuck each other in the ass all the fucking time. Still to this fucking day, they have orgies and fucking crazy gay sex in there. The security guards are all fucking faggots and gays, and man, what they fucking do to us. The gay community is all in the police department go after the fucking straights because it's just gays have to have some extras for what we want. I mean, it's really fucked up that something like that happens because nobody believed me. I believe that the accountability to take an action is not how much punishment you want to take. That was a hate crime. That was a motherfucking hate crime by that family, by them, and by state. I'm 100% aware. And it was so much of their fault that it became somebody else's so much other fault because they then covered it up and lied about it. And the time's gone. Frankie spent, that's 10 years in like solitary confinement. And, Kenneth is wanting to look cool at the radio station with the whites and with the blacks and then claim Hispanic race to the scum of a piece of shit. The horrors of that, and think that it was all covered up. I mean, if you would have a straight guy do that shit, man, goddamn, you're gonna get a rope and hang yourself. What they gonna do to a fucking straight guy, and you do some dirty shit like that? I don't give a fuck if you're a transgender or a faggot. You should be held accountable as a criminal at the worst degrees, like we do. And he's a detective, because you got to remember, you don't know how many people Detective Ken Cooper locked up and threw in prison. They want to go after your family and they want to go after your kid because of what the fuck you did to all these fucking people. You killed a lot of fucking people in prison, and you want to go after, we got to make sure the police department protects Michael Jackson. All that's not why he was. Anyway, all that's gone. So all that's gone. All that, the time is so precious when you're youth. It doesn't matter what anyone else gives you. That's gone when it belonged to us. That's gone. And I couldn't even get a job. I couldn't allow me to work. But I'm not sure how to explain something that you don't have a conversation about and go into details about the credibility that I had with my father and the things that was around, you smell like shit, like a habit of doing that. Or just, going in his room, see if he took a shower, and this is all like after a suicide. Or being 5, 6 years old, hey, you taking medication? Oh, okay. And so he'd be drinking beers, or my dad would be laying on the, and I remember this, I talked about this before. This was to me like a movie moment when I was a kid. It was like 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. And my dad was leaned over like this. Just like that on the couch. Not flaying really lower, but he was like from drunk. And I happened to either wake up, and there was a very habit of me being in front of the TV like Julie used to be and watch movies, or wake up in the middle of the night, because after like an hour of the VCR movie ending, it automatically shut off, and you hear this like the RCA cables and shit shutting off, and I had to turn off the TV. But I don't know if I woke up because of that or what reason, and I don't think I did. I don't think because I wasn't scared, I was startled. I remember waking up and saw my dad, and I remember standing didn't get real close, and I stood right directly in the center, and it felt like a movie for me. And I was staying in the center of the living room. Nobody was on. The only light was on was the TV and the lamp next to him. It was very bright. And thinking, you've been through so much in your life. And I don't know if I said this out loud. And I know it sounds like an old man, words coming out of a child. And I remember just thinking, you've been through so much in your life. You lived through these wars, you had a wife, died, you were in 1944, lived in the 1940s, and you were born in 1925. My dad told me he was born in a time when the TV wasn't even invented. He wasn't until he was about 10 to 11 years old that the TV was invented. And he had to wait a couple of years before the TV came out, and that's when he was able to get a TV. And he told me that story. You will never, let me tell you something that people don't know about. The emotions that you get, you can get the emotions from watching interviews and screens. I got the emotions directly from my dad when he told me about racism. When he told me he couldn't drink from the fountains, he was actually experiencing that in real fucking life. White only, or colors only, and then white only. Like, there was something else I wanted to talk about, like my dad expressing his emotion. Like when you're around those vibes that you feel someone express, you can only get that when you're around a person that's actually lived through that. Those vibes, those vibrations, that sort of aura, that sort of expression, however that expression comes out, you could only get that from a person that lived through that and was actually there. And he was. And that was very authentic. That you can't get from a movie or from storytelling from someone's grandpa that told you when you're actually there with that person. And I thought it was important for me to talk about this life on this battery is about to run out. So I'll have to finish my conversation some other time.